Today I did something that I thought I would never do, and that's I made a client angry at me. And I don't say that tongue in cheek because I'm just so amazing at what I do. I say that with all seriousness because I did make a client angry at me, and I value my relationships with my clients. I work really hard to build personal, close relationships with my clients. I never want to disappoint them, let alone anger them, like I did today. So when I got this email early this morning from a client, a new client, and I read his words of frustration and disappointment at me, my heart sank to my stomach. I was frozen in shock as I read and reread his words. In fact, I'm still processing some of this out loud because it's still very raw, so bear with me as I work through that. But when I read his words, I knew that I had to call him immediately. I had to call him as soon as possible because I didn't want to even give a scent of me trying to hide from the problem or ignore it. I wanted to address it immediately while he was still expressing his frustration in that moment. And I couldn't email him. You can't email someone when the conversation is going to be a difficult one, tense or emotionally charged. Call them, have it in person if you can. In my case, he lives in a different state. I had to call him immediately, which is what I did. And before I had any of the information, the first thing I did was I apologized. I didn't know the whole story. I didn't have all the facts yet, but I apologized because regardless of what the story is, I did something that adversely affected him, and I wanted him to know that I'm sorry for that. I wanted to take responsibility for that. And that was my only hope of diffusing the situation. And then the second thing I did was I asked him what happened so I could get the information, I could understand his perspective, which he very kindly gave me. What happened is I was working with his team one-on-one to interview them about their career growth opportunities and their training needs. And one of his direct reports, when I met with her, she told me that she was unhappy with her current position and her pay, and she was expressing some frustrations in her job. And I told her that I could help her, maybe, but what I would do is send her some job descriptions that I personally developed that I thought would be a good fit for her skill set and experience and would also add value to the organization. And then I asked her to read through those and identify anything that was appealing to her, and then to consider putting together some additional responsibilities that she could come to her boss, my client, with, and they could negotiate her terms and agreement. She didn't do that. She printed off the email that I sent her, which is fine, and she sent it to HR to demand a raise. Not fine. And obviously not my intention. So now I have a client that hired me to help him, but instead my actions have hurt him, and he's angry at me and he's upset at me. So the last thing I did, and I didn't make any excuses. I explained what happened from my perspective and the information that I knew, but I apologized and owned my mistake. The last thing I did is I asked him how I could make it better, if there was anything I could do to make it right. And he told me that he was hoping this would be a long-term relationship, but he didn't know that he could do that anymore. And I have to own that and respect his decision. Now, my conflict resolution skills saved me in this conversation. They got me through a difficult conversation. They might not save the relationship, and I'm going to have to deal with that. I'm going to have to own that if it happens. But it really got me thinking about conflict resolution in general. And fortunately, I've been given some tips throughout my career to help me through this difficult situation. But I'd like to hear from you too. Do you have any conflict resolution tips that have gotten you out of a tough conversation or helped you in a difficult situation? If you do, I'd love to hear them. Thanks, y'all.